He told me I was the only one, but when I found out the truth about his business trips, I realized he was lying the whole time. So here's the deal. I, 27F, have been with Alex, 30M, for 3 years. From the start, he seemed like the perfect guy, charming, funny, smart, and career-driven. He works as a consultant, which means a lot of travel for work. When we first got together, I thought his trips were just part of the job. He'd pack his suitcase, kiss me goodbye, and tell me he was doing this for our future. For a long time, I believed him. He always had a story ready when he came back, how the client was difficult, how the hotel food sucked, how much he missed me. And every time he left, he'd say, "You're my everything, babe. Don't forget that." And yeah, it made me feel special, like I was really his only one. But over the last few months, something felt off. It's hard to explain, but little things started adding up. Like, his phone was always face down, even when it wasn't ringing. And if I got too close while he was texting, he'd immediately lock the screen and say, "It's just work stuff, babe. You wouldn't get it." He'd also get super weird about me touching his phone at all. Like, if I asked to use it to Google something, he'd suddenly need it for an email. Then there were the trips themselves. He'd get vague about details, like what city he was in or what hotel he was staying at. If I asked too many questions, he'd say, "Why do you care? You don't trust me." And honestly, I started feeling crazy for even asking. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, so I let it go. After all, this was Alex, the guy who said he wanted to marry me someday. What reason would he have to lie? But then, out of nowhere, I got a message that changed everything. It was a random Tuesday night. Alex was away on another business trip, and I was home watching Netflix. My phone buzzed, and it was a DM on Instagram from someone I didn't know. The message said, "Hey, I know this is weird, but are you dating Alex? Because I think we need to talk." I stared at the message for a full minute, trying to process it. My heart was racing because something about it just felt real. Like this wasn't some troll or scammer. It was a woman, and she sounded serious. I replied, "Yeah, I'm dating Alex. Why?" And what she said next made my stomach drop. She said, "I've been seeing him for over a year. I didn't know about you until recently, but I have proof. Can I send it to you?" I couldn't breathe. Over a year? Proof? I told her to send whatever she had, and within minutes, my phone started blowing up with screenshots. There were texts between her and Alex, flirty messages, plans to meet up, even photos of them together. One of the pictures was from a weekend I knew Alex had told me he was on a business trip. My heart felt like it stopped. The texts were brutal. He called her babe, told her he missed her, and even said things like, "I hate being away from you on these trips." On the same weekends, he was texting me the exact same stuff. I felt sick. I asked her, "How long has this been going on? Did he ever mention me?" And she said, "He told me he was single. I had no idea he was with anyone until I found your Instagram. That's why I reached out." At that moment, something in me snapped. I wasn't just sad, I was furious. How could he look me in the eye and tell me I was his only one, while living a completely separate life with another woman? But wait, it gets worse. As we kept talking, she casually dropped, "Oh, by the way, you're not the only one either. I found out there's another girl too." Another girl. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. This man, who I thought was planning a future with me, was juggling at least 3 women. At that point, I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or throw my phone across the room. I asked her if she knew anything about the third woman, but she didn't have much information, just a first name and a general idea of where she lived. It didn't matter, though. The damage was already done. I had all the proof I needed to know that Alex had been lying to me this entire time. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept scrolling through the screenshots, rereading the texts, trying to make sense of it. How could I have been so blind? The signs were there, but I trusted him. I loved him. And he used that trust to play me and 2 other women like a complete fool. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. He thought he could get away with it because I'd never find out. But now, I had the receipts, literally, and I was ready to confront him. So after a sleepless night of staring at those screenshots and feeling like my entire world had just imploded, I decided enough was enough. I wasn't going to sit there, quietly stewing in my anger while Alex went about his little double, or should I say triple, life. It was time to confront him, and I was ready for war. The problem? Alex was still on his business trip. Of course, at this point, I knew damn well he wasn't working. I had a pretty good idea he was probably shacked up with one of his other girlfriends. But you know what? That worked in my favor. It gave me time to plan. I wasn't about to just call him and let him feed me more lies. No, I wanted to see his face when I hit him with the truth. So, I spent the day gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I saved all the screenshots from the woman who'd messaged me, scrolled through our old messages to find timestamps that matched, and even checked his social media for anything I might have missed. It was all there. Dates, places, and lies upon lies. I even started connecting dots that didn't make sense before, like the time he cancelled our anniversary dinner last minute because of a client emergency. Spoiler alert, he wasn't with a client. By the time Alex got home that evening, I was sitting on the couch, laptop open, phone in hand, with all the receipts ready to go. I could feel the anger bubbling under the surface, but I kept calm. I wasn't going to yell. Not yet, anyway. He walked in, all casual, like nothing was wrong. He even smiled at me and said, "Hey, babe, I missed you." I almost laughed. The audacity of this man. He kissed me on the cheek like he hadn't just spent the weekend lying through his teeth. I let him settle in, hang up his jacket, and grab a drink before I said anything. Finally, I turned to him and said, "How was your trip?" He looked up, smiled, and said, "It was good. Exhausting, though. Lots of meetings. You know how it is." That's when I lost it. "Oh, really?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Lots of meetings? Like the one you had with Emily? Or was it the other meeting you had with Jessica?" His face went pale, like straight-up ghost white. He stammered, "What are you talking about?" and tried to laugh it off, but I wasn't having it. I grabbed my phone, opened up the screenshots, and tossed it on the coffee table in front of him. "This is what I'm talking about, Alex. Care to explain? Or are you going to keep lying to my face?" He froze. For a second, I thought he might try to deny it, but the look on his face said it all. He knew he was caught. Finally, he muttered, "I can explain." I laughed. "Explain? Oh, please. I'd love to hear how you're going to explain having 2 other girlfriends while you're telling me I'm your only one. Go ahead, Alex. Enlighten me." And y'all, the excuses started pouring out. It's not what it looks like. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was confused. Confused? Confused about what exactly? How to not be a garbage human being? He actually had the nerve to say, "I didn't want to hurt you." I just stared at him, completely done. "You didn't want to hurt me? You've been lying to me for years, Alex. Do you even hear yourself right now? What part of this wasn't supposed to hurt me?" He kept trying to justify it, saying things like, "I didn't know how to end things with them, and it was never serious with them, it's you I really love." But I wasn't buying any of it. I told him if you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. End of story. And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, he said, "You're blowing this out of proportion." That was it. That was the moment I officially lost my cool. I stood up, looked him dead in the eye and said, "Get out. Pack your stuff and leave. We're done." He tried to argue, saying we could work through this and that he'd cut them off. But I wasn't listening anymore. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase and tossed it at him. "You can stay with one of your business trip girlfriends. I'm sure they'll be happy to have you." He finally realized I wasn't playing around. He packed some of his things and left, but not before throwing out one last pathetic attempt to guilt me. "I never meant to lose you," he said, standing in the doorway like some tragic hero. I just rolled my eyes and shut the door in his face. That night, I blocked his number, unfollowed him on everything, and poured myself a giant glass of wine. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, relief, but mostly I felt free. Free from his lies, his manipulation, and his complete lack of respect for me. The next day, I reached out to the woman who'd messaged me and thanked her for telling me the truth. She told me she'd already cut ties with him, and I later found out that the third woman, the one I barely knew anything about, had done the same. Turns out, Alex ended up alone, just like he deserved. TLDR, my boyfriend of 3 years lied about his business trips and had 2 other girlfriends the whole time. I confronted him, kicked him out, and now I'm moving on with my life. Good riddance.